Nano and the others were surprised, and Lefiya also opened her eyes a little. The other students can only go down to the 15th floor at most, and Lefiya intends to advance slowly during the teaching period, eventually going up to the 18th floor. She has already obtained permission from Baldur and Leon. This was the judgment she made after estimating the strength of the 7th squad, but... No. I can't allow that. Why? The dungeon has been visited many times. This labyrinth has already been explored. Don't underestimate the dungeon. What's more, the lower level is too early for you. Lefiya shook her head, expressing her rejection clearly. This made Luke's face contort violently. He had suppressed this rebellious attitude until now, but now it was revealed. Nano and I are level 3, and our skills have already met the floor standards set by the guild. It should also be applicable to the lower floors. No matter how high the level is, the first floor with your experience is scary. Even if I'm with you, I don't want to turn my back on you today. She spoke out of concern for the safety of Nano and the others, but Luke didn't seem to understand this. In his opinion, I'm afraid it's just a condescending view. He shook his gray hair, bit his lip, and finally screamed. Didn't you go to the deep layer at LV3? Yes, indeed. She knew what Luke meant. Even though it was the familiar's grand expedition, I still ignored the recommended levels and was taken to the deep level, and then the dragon pot. Since Lefiya can go to a crueler environment, they must also be allowed. He probably meant it. But, that's because I'm a mage from the Loki family. Even so, this sentence is enough to answer everything. Lefiya is still alive now, thanks to Finn and the others. It was by being protected by them that she was able to overcome one desperate situation after another. And now Lefiya and Luke are not in the Loki familia. Just a teacher and a student. Upon hearing Lefiya's extremely concise response, Luke frowned deeply. You're not as familiar with dungeons as I am, and I'm not an adventurer who has the ability to completely protect you. I'm sorry to let you see my immature side, but, please give up. She concluded calmly. Nano, Millie and Cole didn't interrupt, they held their breath watching the exchange between the two. Luke lowered his head first, his fists shaking. Because of you, just because adventurers are always like this. Then he raised his head, bursting with inner emotions. There is no more time to live leisurely, why can't you find out? Lefiya's eyebrows furrowed in a surprised manner for the first time. Perhaps this expression angered him even more, and Luke shouted angrily, do you even know what the world outside of Orary is like now? After hearing him shout such words, Lefiya finally realized what the boy meant. More and more places in the world are being damaged by monsters. Every year, the rate of increase becomes faster. Humans who have lost their homes, cities whose streets have been turned into ruins, and elves' hometowns have disappeared from the map. I know how many times I've witnessed this. The biggest reason is Dragon Valley. Cruel dragons keep descending from there, and many people suffer from it. The underworld is actually becoming more and more strange. The school district is not only an educational institution, but also a world power supported by Orary. Therefore, here there is also a side of volunteers, or mercenaries. If you receive a request in the country or city you arrive in, you will use volunteer combat mission to send teachers or students to combat damage caused by monsters, natural disasters, and sometimes even intervening in regional disputes. Luke must have seen the tragedy of the world in the process. Do you know how many people are still crying right now? Can you imagine that these people would cry with joy just seeing us coming? Obviously we're not even the adventurers from Orary, we're just students. Is it sadness or a feeling of helplessness? Trembling at what he had seen in the past, Luke said, the world is waiting for adventurers, waiting for a hero. The sad desire that everyone in the underworld yearns for. The last one left, the subjugation of the Black Dragon, is the responsibility of Labyrinth City. The boy in front of him was heartbroken by the tragedy of the world. Compared to Lefiya, compared to the adventurers of Orary, he personally felt the magnitude of the crisis. She finally understood where Luke's anxiety was coming from. The adventurer from Orary still hasn't managed to save the world and is dissatisfied with all the adventurers. Normally, our teacher should praise. She also understood what Leon meant. Indeed, Luke's indignation is right and noble. If you're taking your time, let me be the hero. We will become stronger and help the people who are still suffering. So don't get in my way. His heroic desire is not for himself, much less wealth and fame. On the contrary, it arises from free devotion, from the desire to erase someone's pain. Lefiya also felt that her gesture was very respectable. But in that case, I can't let you go. I think it's great that you think about others. But for that other person, you will become the dead one. Lefiya didn't change her attitude. There is only a fine line between Luke's will and the spirit of self-sacrifice. Even if he didn't realize it himself, it was obvious to Lefiya. He was in a hurry to die. You can also bet. If he became an adventurer like that, he would definitely lose his life. People like current Luke are the easiest to die. It's only been a few years since she became an adventurer, but Lefiya is the only one who understands this. At this moment, Lefiya looked up after all the doubts she had about the 7th team were explained. Take 100 steps back and say, if you are already prepared in your heart, you can die. However, I will never allow your movements to be caught by surprise. I always thought it was incredible. This is definitely not how the belligerent Nano got to LV3. It's because she was forced to accompany you to play. It wasn't Luke himself who was heavily shaken, but Nano beside him. Slender swayed with her reddish blonde hair. When he fought for the suffering people, she who liked this childhood sweetheart must have followed him desperately and supported him. Her magic should have saved Luke countless times and occasionally exposed herself to danger. A guardian mage is much less likely to get advanced experience points than a vanguard, otherwise she wouldn't be able to easily reach level 3. Even if Luke didn't know it, Nano was protecting him, giving it her all. Milia and Cole didn't confirm Lefiya's words, but her silent gestures said it all. Luke, who was speechless, turned his head to look at Nano, but she just hurriedly lowered her head and looked at the ground. Other people will die because of themselves. Have you never considered that possibility? I'm fine alone. I don't need the power of Nano and the others, I'll go alone. Then it's even worse. Only one person can never win the dungeon. Just as Lefiya was speaking calmly, Nano didn't want to hear the boy's self-destructive speech anymore, so she made a voice. Forget it, Luke. Is Lefiya-senpai also worried about Luke? And I don't want Luke to be an adventurer alone. Calm down, okay? Don't worry, as long as everyone is together, as long as you work together with Miley and Cole, Luke's wish will definitely come true. Nano's eyes were covered in mist and her small hands tightly grabbed the corner of the boy's clothes. Luke was speechless at first, then forcefully pushed her hand away. Don't bother me. You didn't just follow me without permission. If you're so stupid, go and stay somewhere else. There's no need to be thrown by me. Upon hearing this refusal, Nano was obviously very hurt. Millie, who was just watching, also raised her eyebrows, and Cole also frowned sadly. When they were about to approach Luke, Lefiya superimposed the past memories on Luke and Nano by herself. The shameful past and the regret that gave rise to loneliness turned into a blue-white fog, eating away at Lefiya's heart. Let me listen to my companion's advice. Especially when I don't know what it means to keep my heart and what it means to be obstinate. Before the surprised Millie and the others bowed down, she said such a strong word to Luke. His tone was so indifferent that she didn't expect to be able to make such a voice. The way you are fighting now is really ugly. Because of this stubbornness, you can't look at yourself objectively. Please don't talk about heroes when you haven't lost such a great person. Lefiya even brought back the old feelings. She said in her own anger. At this moment, she suddenly came to her senses. Luke blushed. She had never seen him blush like that since she met him. The pupils looking at him turned into a collection of disgust. What a shame, she thought, but it was too late. The dispute has been irreconcilable. It was too late to regret now, and Lefiya reflected violently on her serious behavior. Besides, that's it. She's always avoided thinking about it like that, but I always feel like his hair color is a bit like a certain rabbit.